Welcome to Breaking the Debt Cycle, Gaining Your Financial Freedom from Credit Cards.
Hello and welcome to Breaking the Debt Cycle, Gaining Your Financial Freedom from Credit Cards with experienced bankruptcy attorney Michael Sheridan. I am your host, Kevin Rosenquist, and today's episode we'll be discussing one of the most important aspects of life after bankruptcy, rebuilding your credit. Michael, welcome back. So good to see you.
Thanks for having me, Kevin.
So rebuilding your credit. Obviously, that's one of the things people are most concerned about when it comes to bankruptcy. What is the impact of bankruptcy on a person's credit score, and how long does it take to really stay, or how long does it really stay on someone's report?
Yeah, so this is a great question, one I address all the time. And so, let's start with the myth that's out there. The myth is bankruptcy is going to destroy your credit. Your credit score is a badge of honor that you earn over time. It's your permanent record, and it's the reward you get from the banks by being a responsible consumer. There may have been a time when that was actually true. When credit cards first came about in the 50s and 60s, that was kind of how credit scores were originally kind of conceived of as, hey, we want to make sure that, we're only extending credit to people who we feel are reliable and can make the payments back. And so it's really, quite the badge of honor to have. What happened, though, is that in the 70s and 80s, banks began to learn that it was more profitable to extend credit to people who couldn't always pay on time. The sweet spot is people who can pay, but maybe just a little bit late. So banks started to learn we make a lot more money from the people who carry a balance, pay interest, and maybe go late every once in a while, and we get to charge on some $30, $40, $50 late fees, rather than the people who just pay off their balance every month. Credit card companies don't like those people.
Yeah, they're not making anything.
Right. And so your credit score is really a reflection to the credit card companies of how profitable is this person going to be. So nobody really knows the secret sauce algorithm. I mean, some people know, but it's not a widely known fact what that algorithm exactly is, but it's pretty widely understood that the two biggest factors for our credit score are our debt to income ratio and our timeliness of payments. Those two factors, it's estimated to account for about 70 to 80% of the weight of your credit score. And so if you're using debt, if you're carrying a debt load and you're making your payments on time, banks love you. You're great. You're generating income for them. You're paying 29, 30, 32% interest, sometimes even more. They love you. They want to have you. Your credit score is excellent. Well, what happens when your debt load gets higher than your income? Now the credit card companies say, we don't know that this person's going to keep making those payments. Now the credit score is going to go down. You don't look quite as valuable to us as you used to be. So our credit score is not a badge of honor. Our credit score is a function of how profitable the credit card companies think we're going to be. Now, when you file for bankruptcy protection, it does in fact affect your credit score, but it's not nearly as bad as you would assume. And there's actually quite a large benefit that you get from the bankruptcy to start rapidly rebuilding your credit score that a lot of people don't take into consideration. So on the date your case is filed, regardless of whether it's Chapter 7 or Chapter 13, it will say whatever Chapter 7, for example, filed on whatever date. And it's going to say that in the account history section of your credit report. The credit score is pulling information from the account history section to generate whatever that number is. So there's no automatic exact number of how much is the bankruptcy going to affect your credit score, because the credit score is taking in all these different variables. And so the general rule is the higher your credit score is on the date we file your case, the more the bankruptcy is going to affect it. The lower it is on the date we file your case, the less the bankruptcy is going to affect it. If you've got a mid 700s credit score, your credit score is going to go down more than if you're in the low 500s, for example, right? But by the time a lot of people have gotten to the point where they are looking to file for bankruptcy, their debt to income ratio is out of whack. They've been missing payments a lot of times. It's not necessary. I've got a lot of clients who are current on everything, but they can look down the horizon and say, see, I can't make these payments. I'm getting nowhere on this. I can barely keep my head above water. And some months I can't even do that. So, you don't have to be behind on your credit card payments, but that's often the case by the time people come in to meet with me. And so on the date your case is filed, the bankruptcy is going to affect your credit score, but it's not going to go down to 0 or 250 or whatever the bottom of the credit score range is. But what a lot of people don't understand is because of the way the automatic stay order works, that's part of the bankruptcy code, the laws that govern what the bankruptcy courts do. That automatic stay prevents your creditors from reporting balances due going forward. So the things that have started to pull your credit score down going forward, they can no longer affect your credit score. You've effectively cut the anchor off your credit score. Now, if you did nothing more, your credit score really wouldn't move anywhere. But you now have a really unique opportunity to start rapidly rebuilding your credit. How do you rebuild your credit? You have to have some kind of debt obligation in your name that you're consistently paying on time. Now, for a lot of people, that's a car loan, a mortgage. If you don't have a car loan or a mortgage, you will very likely have credit card offers right out of the gate. And a lot of people, again, are surprised. Why are they offering me credit? Didn't I just destroy my credit with the bankruptcy? No, you appear more profitable to them now. And this is highly predatory, but this is how they operate. Right. Hey, they know that legally it's going to be a few more years before you're able to file bankruptcy again. And you may be in a situation where you need credit. A lot of my clients will get offers from financing companies and dealership for car loans. Hey, you want a car loan? You want a car loan? Here you go. They're going to be high interest rates, but so you want to use them wisely, but you can use these as tools to start rebuilding your credit. And in terms of the credit cards, which are also going to be high interest rates, unfortunately, you can charge a small amount every month that you know you can pay off in full. A tank of gas, a small grocery trip, and pay it off in full on time every month. And as you do, your credit score keeps going up. And because you don't have all that debt history pulling it down, you can really rapidly start rebuilding it faster than even if you were able to pay off all of the debt you had. Now, a lot of people are like, well, why don't I just settle these debts through a debt settlement company? You can try that. And absolutely, if that's an option for you, go ahead and explore it. But I meet with a lot of people who come to me from debt settlement companies who have overpromised and underdelivered.
Yeah.
And so one of the issues is these companies are like, hey, stop paying on your credit cards. Instead, direct those payments into an escrow account, a savings account, essentially, that we have access to. And then once you go 3 months, 6 months, 9 months late on these credit cards, we're going to reach out to them and we're going to negotiate lucrative settlements and settle it for 40 cents on the dollar, 60 cents on the dollar, whatever it happens to be. Well, there's two things they're not really telling you out of the gate. Number one, if they are successful, which hopefully they are, you have to pay taxes on the amount that's forgiven. So when you take out a loan or you take out a credit card, it's not considered income for tax purposes because you have to pay it back at some future date, right? So the IRS says, well, that's not income because you have to pay it back. But as soon as you come up with a settlement agreement and a portion of it becomes canceled or forgiven, boom, that amount is magically taxable income for that tax year.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Now you have, by law, the credit card companies have to send you a 1099, which they also send a copy to the IRS, and they say, hey, you settled this for $4,000 less than the full balance or $6,000 or whatever the case may be. And now you got to put that on your income pile and pay taxes on it. Now, it might make sense. It still might be a benefit to only pay 20 or 25% on that amount rather than the full 100%, but that's not something they're necessarily fully disclosing to you out the gate. The other thing that they tend not to tell people here, at least in Minnesota, we've talked earlier about how Minnesota is one of 4 states in the country that allows hip pocket service. And effectively what that means is creditors in Minnesota typically sue you faster than they would in another state where they have to follow a more regimented court process and there's a higher cost to filing a lawsuit. And so since the bar is so low and the costs are so low to start a lawsuit against somebody in Minnesota, it's usually only about 8 to 18 months of not receiving payments that the creditors decide it's worth their time and effort to start the lawsuit against you. Right. Well, in the fine print of your settlement agreement, you'll find the monthly administrative fee that you're paying to the debt settlement company, it doesn't cover litigation. And so their solution is going to be, oh, well, we talked to them and now you just have to pay an extra $350 a month on top of the money you're already paying. Well, I don't have that money. What do you mean an extra $350? You told me I only had to pay this much a month. Oh, well, I mean, that's what you have to do. Well, you said you were going to help me. Well, there's nothing we can do. We don't really have any defenses available to you. So there's nothing we can do in the litigation. So you're just going to have to pay more. And that's an experience a lot of people have where the debt settlement company is telling you all these wonderful things about, oh, you're only going to pay what you can afford, and we're going to get these all settled for you. And in reality, what they find out, a lot of people, I can't say this is exclusive, because obviously I'm only talking to the people it didn't work for. I assume there's people it works for out there, right? But, it's not uncommon for me to talk to somebody who's like, I was in a payment plan with a settlement company for 8 months, 12 months, a year and a half, and I paid them thousands of dollars, and they either didn't settle one account for me or they settled one or two, but now I'm getting sued and they're not going to do anything for me, and I can't pay them even more than I'm already paying them. So I don't want to get garnished. What do I do? So that is why bankruptcy is an incredibly powerful tool. And getting back to your question, because I know I got a little bit off a track there, but getting back to your question, even if you're to pay all this off through a debt settlement, like a debt management plan, where you actually pay it off over time, the debt settlement component is actually reported on your credit as a negative credit event. So it's not like, hey, I've paid this or I've paid the majority of it, my credit's going to be stellar. It's actually going to take you longer to get that credit score beyond, because there's no legal component like an automatic stay that chops the anchor off your credit score. And that's another reason why bankruptcy is such a preferred and powerful tool for people who actually take the time to learn about what it is and how it can benefit them. I think a lot of people out there kind of take this emotional approach to it of like, well, my dad said, never file bankruptcy, or my grandpa was against bankruptcy, or this or that. And I'm not that kind of person. Bankruptcy is just for people who are reckless and aren't responsible. And that's not me. Again, that's 180 degrees from what the law is trying to do. And if you sat down and made a business decision and looked at money in, money out every month, and hey, this $600, $800, $1,000, $1,200 I'm paying every month towards the credit cards. If I could take that money every month and put it towards my living expenses, maybe put some towards retirement, how is that going to benefit me? And, and beyond that, how is that going to just generally relieve my stress and the difficulty I'm having in my life and with my relationships right now? You'll find it's a huge benefit on top of being able to rapidly rebuild your credit.
Yeah, it's interesting you brought the thing up about like parents and other older generations, because I think my mom, if my mom was ever late on a credit card payment or a payment of any sort, it would have been like the biggest deal in the history of our family. If she was like 48 hours late, it's like so ingrained in my parents' head that credit score is everything. And if you knock down your credit score, it is a total badge of honor for them that they have a great credit score. And maybe there's too much emphasis put on that by some people.
I think so. Consumer credit has become a bedrock for our economy. And if you go back and you look at data, you'll see from about the mid-1970s, if you adjust for inflation, wages are almost a flat line. They barely go up at all.
Right.
But even when you account for inflation, you look at the cost of living, it just goes up like this at an angle. And so if people are making approximately the same that they were 40, 50 years ago, but the cost of living has increased by 40, 50, 60, 80%, how are people filling that gap?
They're not.
Credit cards. Credit cards to meet those expenses. And hey, as long as you can make those monthly payments and make it work, great. So the economy that we are living in right now is not the economy that our parents grew up in.
Very true.
It's not the same by any stretch. The cost of an education, the cost of housing,
oh my goodness.
40 years ago, were people paying $200 a month for a cell phone? No. Right. I mean, you were paying like $20 for your phone bill and
for your landline.
Call long distance, so we don't have to get expenses on that. All of those costs of living expensive have gone up year over year, and wages are pretty much stagnant. And so people have begun to rely on credit cards to fill in those gaps, and certainly to address those unforeseen emergency expenses, car repairs, vet bills, doctor bills, whatever it is. And then something happens. You can make your payments, but then I lost my job. But then my hours were cut. But then, my kid has a medical condition and I had to take time off of work. And, one of the coping mechanisms we all have is we think it's temporary. Like, hey, we make good money here. We're always responsible. We'll figure a way out. And you keep doing that, and you keep doing that, and you keep doing that. and the hole just keeps getting deeper and deeper and deeper. That's why these laws are here, to protect you and your family and your income and your assets so that you can move forward and the banks don't have to just get richer and richer off of you.
Right. What is your general advice to someone as far as a long-term strategy goes for rebuilding after bankruptcy?
So, number one, you got to have some kind of debt obligation, right? So if you've got a mortgage or car loan, that's great. A credit card is actually going to be a more powerful credit rebuilding tool for you. So, don't just accept offers you get in the mail. Do a little bit of research. You've got a powerful research tool in your pocket, your smartphone. You can go online and search post-bankruptcy credit cards, look at some different offers. One of the common ones is a secured credit card where you maybe put like $300 down, for example, and you get a $300 credit limit. And then after 90 days of using that responsibly, making your payments on time, now your credit limit doubles up to 600, and it does that in cycles. And then you keep building it up. And as your credit score increases, and as long as you have stable income, you're going to find you're going to start getting those credit card offers for, the travel points and the thank you points and all of those kinds of things. Keep using that responsibly. And one of the bedrock things we have to do, and, I'm guilty of this too, is use a budget, make a budget and stick to it. And that doesn't mean you can never stray from it, but you should at least be mindful of where your money is going. Right. And so that, hey, if this expense comes up and I have to address it, maybe I'm lowering this other expense this month or over the next couple months because I don't want to just put it on the credit card and say, I'll deal with it later. Because with the interest rates, later turns into much longer. Right. So, having a budget, using credit as responsibly as we can, knowing that we don't want that interest rate to snowball on us. The goal is to not carry a balance every month. That's really how you want to use your credit cards. I use credit cards every month. I pay a majority of my expenses on my credit card.
Yeah, I do too.
And I pay off the balance every month. Mm-hmm. And I do that because I get benefits from the credit card companies, right? Yeah, exactly. And so, that's how we pay for any vacations we have is, we're not saving for a vacation. We're saving for a rainy day fund. And then we're building points by using these credit cards and we pay them off on time. Now, great if you can do it. If you can't, then, you need to work out a budget and a payment plan. And if you're like, I can't make it work and I'm not going to work 9 different jobs and never see my kids and never have time to sleep in order to make these banks even richer for the next 5 years, well, then maybe it's time to have a free consultation.
I think that sounds like great advice. Well, thanks for tuning in to Debt Cycle, Gaining Your Financial Freedom from Credit Cards with experienced bankruptcy attorney Michael Sheridan. To connect with Michael, head to atlasbankruptcy.com and please be sure to like and subscribe to our channel and leave us a review. Michael, so great to have you here. Thanks so much for all the info.
My pleasure, Kevin. Thanks so much.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.